Okay, we'll continue directly from where we left off last lecture. Ibrahim a.s. was just about to sacrifice his son, and at that moment Allah revealed the ram. And we described the ram in some detail. From the description of the ram, it is clear to us that this ram is something of a spectacle. It's something of a wonder. It's different ram. It's a different ram from what we usually see in the dunya. It has outstanding quality, in other words. So, where did this ram come from? What's the origin of this ram? Ibn Abbas says, and I came across this in At-Tabri's book of history, but it's mentioned in other sources as well. Ibn Abbas narrates that this ram, it was in the heavens. Allah released it from the heavens back to dunya. But why was it there to begin with? Those who have been with us from day one, they would recall the story of Cain and Abel, Habil and Qabil. This is in lecture 2. The first two sons of Adam. I can't go over the entire story again, but just as a quick reminder, they're both required to make a sacrifice to Allah. Cain, Qabil, the elder son, he was a farmer. Among his crop, he selected the worst of his produce, which is the weeds. He gathered the weeds and he presented that as sacrifice to Allah. And the other, Habil, the younger brother, he was a shepherd. Among his flock, he selected the one animal that stood out, that he had most admiration for, that caught his eye, and that was a ram. And this ram was special in its nature, and he realized that. So he sacrificed the thing that held most value to him in regards to his work. And that's the definition of sacrifice. And so, not to our surprise, among the two, the ram was accepted by Allah. So at that moment, fire fell from the heavens and consumed the ram. But it didn't burn. This is Ibn Abbas narrating this. It didn't burn. But rather, this was just a means for Allah to take the ram into the heavens. And Allah kept it there until the sacrifice of Ismail. Then Allah re-released it back into the dunya. So it's the same ram that dates back to the time of Habil. Yeah? Because we understand, from our understanding, you don't age when you're in heaven, in the heavens. You don't age. Yeah? But that was the case. It's the same ram that dates back to that story. The Mufassirin, the commentators of the Quran, they came together and they've listed 10 animals. 10 animals among all the animals of the dunya. 10 have been singled out. Why? Because, as we understand it from hadith, animals, they're not destined for Jannah. And they're not destined for Jahannam. But rather they will end their life cycle on the Day of Judgment. And we'll discuss why when the time comes, inshaAllah, in the series. But 10 will enter Jannah. 10 have been singled out. And this ram is one of them. This is according to the commentators of the Quran. We've come across 3 so far. I won't tell you what the other 2 is. Try to see if you can figure out on your own. So this is number 3, the ram. When you reach all 10, then I'll list it out for you, inshallah. Okay. And the reason I'm mentioning this, because there's a lot of things I've omitted from the series. The reason I'm mentioning this is because many times people quote this as if it's hadith. It's not hadith. As far as I'm aware, it's words of the scholars. Yeah, so Allah knows best. Now, I said this last week, that if you were to take a step back and you just analyze the life of Ibrahim a.s., you'd realize that his entire life is full of trials. But after every trial, there's a reward. After difficulty comes ease. And so, this was no exception. This was his greatest test. And he passed it. The sacrifice of his only son, Ismail. So, soon after, the reward was to follow. But the news of the reward came in a most unexpected manner. 3 strangers approached him at his home in Palestine. Surah Hud, which is the 11th surah of the Quran, verse 69. And our messengers came to Ibrahim with the good news. They said, Salam. They're strangers. Not an ayah in the Quran that says they're strangers. He doesn't recognize them. He doesn't know who they are. He's never met them before, as far as he's aware. So what was his response? How did he respond to these people that gave salam to him? Did he say, I don't know your manhaj? Yeah? Did he say, you look like a Sufi, man? You look like a Shia. And the third one looks like a kuffar, man. He could have felt this, innit? He doesn't know who they are. The ayah continues. They said salam, he said salam. He returned the salam. He returned the salam. In fact, yeah, if you read this in Arabic, it's not actually the word salam here. They said salam man, and he responded salamun. Yeah, Ibn Kathir says that his response was superior. His response was superior. They both mean peace, but his one was more effective way of saying peace. And this is in accordance to the Sunnah. Surah Nisa, verse 86. When you are greeted with a greeting, greet in return with what is better than it, or at least return it equally. So every time you greet, return the greeting. So if you fulfill the Sunnah, on top of that, he respond with a better greeting. Now, I don't like talking like this, because some people his brothers have come to me and spoken to me about this. We're facing brothers and they're not willing to say salam to everybody. They want to know your manhaj first, or what's your aqidah or whatnot. Whereas here, Ibrahim a.s. is returning the salam. He doesn't know who they are. Doesn't know who they are. And upon occasion, a Sahaba approached Muhammad ﷺ and he asked him, "Tell me a good deed. Tell me a good deed that I can implement in my life, and it will bring me much reward." And the Prophet said in response, "Give salam to those you don't know." Now, if you don't know someone, how would you know his manhaj? How would you know his, his opinion, regarding the religion? How would you know his worship? How would you know if he's coming bid'ah or shirk or whatnot? Someone may argue that, at that time there was no such thing as sects in Islam. And when we go further in the series and study the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you realize that's not true at all. Sects did exist during the lifetime of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Another hadith, Ubaidah ibn Zayd, he narrates this, and this is in Sahih Bukhari, that upon occasion, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was walking past a group of people, and among that group there were Muslims, Jews, and mushriks, and he said salam to them. Okay, he said salam to them. Last lecture, 2 weeks ago, a Sikh brother arrived. He attended, and people weren't sure now. Whoa, some people said salam to him, and then later on they found out he was Sikh. Whoa, what have I done? Yeah. So is it correct? Is it correct? Yeah. So from this hadith, they say it's permissible. Yeah. But it's not from the Sunnah. It's not from the Sunnah to approach a kuffar and give you salam first. But if they were to give salam to you, we return the salam. Just as Ibrahim a.s. did so, and just how Allah has commanded in this ayah, Surah Nisa, to do so. I don't am passing a fatwa here. Do you understand? I'm not passing a fatwa, yeah? You do your own research, inshaAllah. I'll just tell you one thing. Sheikh bin Baz, he said in regards to this, when he was asked, can I give salam to disbeliever, he said, don't give salam first. It's not from the Sunnah to give salam first, but to give salam to you, return the salam. You return the salam. And Shaykh Uthaymeen said the same thing, but generally it's not permissible to give salam first. But return the salam to give salam to you, irrespective of what aqidah or what religion they are, because Islam is a religion of peace. This is his response. And Allah knows best. Okay? And so the ayah continues, Surah Hud, verse 69. Then he made no delay in bringing a roasted calf. They're strangers. And he goes out of his way. He brings a calf, he roasts it. He roasts it to perfection and provides it to them. He's feeding them. He's brought guests into his home. But they're strangers. Ibrahim a.s. is one of his many titles, but one of his many titles is, he's the father of the guests. He's the father of guests. Why? Why is he given this title? There's two reasons. One is that no one in history has exceeded him in regards to generosity. No one's more generous than him. And in this case, he demonstrated that. Because 2 points of generosity, people say, is to provide good quality and good quantity. He roasted the calf. So he provided excellent quality. He exhausted effort in preparation of this calf. That's quality. And in quantity, in another ayah in the Quran, Allah says Samin. That this calf, he gave it the whole calf. It was a large, really meaty calf. That's what Samin means. So that's quantity. He satisfied both conditions of one who's generous. Okay? But that's not the only reason why he's referred to as the father of the guests. Qurtubi, he says that Ibrahim a.s. was the one who began the custom of inviting people over for food, for a meal. Before then, people just eat within the family, within the home, among family members. But to invite strangers over, to invite people who are like neighbors or people of the society over, this was unheard of. Didn't exist. Yeah? It was unprecedented, in other words. So he began the custom. Not only that, Mufassirin say, scholars of Quran, they say that in fact, Ibrahim a.s., whenever it was time for him to eat, whenever it was meal time, whenever he would sit down to eat, he would first search, he would first scope, he would seek for someone else to join him. He would never eat alone. Qurtubi further narrates in his tafsir a story from the Israeliyat, very interesting, that one time he found a man. Okay, he was looking for someone to eat with, as usual, and he found a man. The man agreed, yeah, okay, I'll join you. Upon sitting down, before they placed the food in their mouths, Ibrahim a.s. said, begin in the name of Allah. Do not start this meal without saying Bismillah. The man was confused. I don't know this Allah you speak of. Or Bismillah. This is strange to me. Ibrahim a.s. was a bit worried now. Can I really be eating with someone? Can I really entertain someone and provide food for someone who is so far removed from Islam? They doesn't even know what Allah is. And so he asked him to leave. Soon after, Jibreel comes. Jibreel comes and he tells him, look, throughout the entire life of this man, who's lived in disbelief the entire time, yeah, Allah has provided for him food. Allah has provided for him from his sustenance. And you are unwilling to give even a piece, even a morsel from yours. So instantly Ibrahim a.s. hearing this, so now he realized I've done wrong. So he quickly rushed out to search for this man. And when he approached the man, he told him, come back, I want you to stay and eat. So the man was like, no, you got to tell me first, why did you do this? It's very strange of you to invite me the first time and then to push me out. So Ibrahim a.s. explained, and the man accepted Islam from this. Manners go a long way. Manners goes a long way. It was the manner of Ibrahim a.s. to bring him back that brought him to Islam. Okay? And then they ate together and they began in the name of Allah. They began with Bismillah. Okay? So that's from the Israeliyat. Allah knows best, but the lessons of the story holds true. And so he has prepared this calf. He prepared this calf for them. And Allah says in the Quran, and this is Surah 51 verse 27, فَقَرَبَهُ إِلَيْهِمْ, meaning that he served them. He waited upon them. He acted like a waiter. He didn't just dump the food on the table and say, eat. You know how we do, by the way. We say, help yourself. That's laziness. He went the further mile to be a host. He's setting the example to us, what it means to be a host. Yeah? He's waiting upon them. And so this, once again, he's seeing how his title, Father of the Guests, it manifests in his actions. Now, these three men, overwhelmed with such generosity, sitting there, they said, look, we can't accept this. We can't accept such level, such an offer, without paying a price. Name your price. Okay, this is mentioned, Al-Tabari mentions this, it's in this tafsir. Name your price, they said. And so Ibrahim a.s. responded, very smartly, intellectually, the price is Bismillah. You say Bismillah before you begin and say Alhamdulillah when you finish. That's your price. At this juncture, they just continued to sit there. Their hands didn't extend towards the food. I'll read you the ayah, inshaAllah. Surah Hud, verse 70. So when he noticed their hands not reaching for it, he found them strange and felt a bit fright from them. He found them strange and felt a bit fright. Why strange? Because they came appearing to be very noble people. They said salam first to the Prophet. They gave Islam first. And yet they're not eating from the food. It is Islamic custom to accept an offering even when you don't want it. even when you don't desire it. Okay? Even if they were not hungry, they should at least take a piece from it. It's disrespectful. Yeah? To not do that. To not accept the offering. Okay? So this was strange to him. And he felt a bit fright because anyone who comes to your home and you provide them food and not eating from it implies they're here for something else. That they must have an evil intention here. The reason is quite simple why they weren't eating. Okay? Simple, but it's not obvious. Unless you think outside the box. The reason is that the food and water does not feed these three men. It's not their sustenance. It's not their fuel. It's not what they survive on. Because they weren't human. At this moment, seeing that they frightened their host, they revealed themselves. We are angels from Allah. So the next ayah, ayah 71, still Surah Hud. They said, be not frightened. We have been sent to the people of Lut. Okay? We are angels from Allah. We are messengers from Allah. And we've been sent to where Lut is staying. Your nephew Lut. Lut, alayhi salam, at this point in time, he's not living with Ibrahim alayhi salam. And I'll explain why later. He's living in a region called Sodom. Okay? And they're very evil people. I'll speak about them in a bit. We've been sent to destroy that nation. That's what they're saying. The ayah continues. And his wife standing nearby, she laughed. At this point in the storyline, his wife hasn't been mentioned. Until now, his wife hasn't been mentioned in the story. So we're under the impression his wife wasn't there. But now we know she was there the whole time. That's what's strange about this. Unless you understand why. You see, her state of hijab. Remember, hijab is not the veil. It's not something that you can touch. Yeah, hijab is a state. Yeah, both men and women are required to be in that state of hijab, to be in a state of immense modesty. Her state of modesty was so immense, it was as if she wasn't even there. It was as if she wasn't even in there, even though she was there the whole time. Because it's not appropriate for her to be conversing and like giggling and being so informal and so familiar with these three strange men. But only until they reveal themselves as angels, then can she can be herself. And so she began to laugh. But she began to laugh in response to what they said. They said, we're going to destroy people of Lut. And she began laughing. Why? This is from Iman. These people were evil people. Evil people. And when the side of good overtakes the side of evil, that's good news. That's a good thing. That should please the heart of someone who has Iman. And so she laughed. Now, this pleased her, right? This pleased her. So this made her happy, right? The angels' news made her happy. Allah's news made her happy. But Allah wanted to make her even more happy. Allah wanted to multiply that. Okay? That feeling. And so at that moment, the angels continued. The next ayah. She laughed. So we gave her the good news about Ishaq. This is quite interesting. Ishaq, they're telling her you're going to have a son. And they gave her the name of the son before she's even pregnant. The name is Ishaq. Ishaq means laughter. She was laughing at the moment she received the news that your son will have a name and his name is laughter. Okay? So he fulfilled his name before he was born. This is quite unique, yeah? and about Yaqub. You're going to have a son named Ishaq and he's going to have a son named Yaqub. This is knowledge of the unseen. Knowledge of the unseen. Before she's even pregnant, she's informed that she'll be pregnant. She's informed the sex of the child. She's informed that that child will have a son named Yaqub. And this is quite exceptional because if you're told that your son will have a son, it means nothing to you unless you're alive at the time. Unless you'll be living when you see that grandson of yours. They're very old age at this time. Roughly over 100 years old. Okay? And she's being told that you're not only going to live to see Ishaq, you're going to live to see Yaqub as well. This is good news for older age. You're going to live for longer, mate. That's what the angels are telling her. This is immense news for her. This is great. This is good news. Okay? Now, how did she respond to this? She was laughing a moment ago. She said, woe is to me. Woe. Shall I give birth to a child while I'm an old woman and this is my husband, an old man? This is something strange indeed. This is not the extent of her response. Yeah. Surah 51 verse 29. And his wife, Sarah in this case, approached with a cry and struck her face and said, I'm a barren old woman. She slapped her own face. She was in shock. What you're saying doesn't make any sense. It's defying science. I'm old. My husband's old. And I'm akeem, meaning I'm barren. I can't biologically provide for a child. It doesn't work. She's the wife of a prophet. She's the wife of a prophet. She's seen miracles before. Why should this shock her? Because the signs of Allah never ceases to amaze you. Never. The wonders doesn't end. You'll always be impressed by the wonders of Allah. And that's why she was shocked. They're both given good news, right? You're going to have a son. This is amazing. This is good news to both to the wife and the husband, to the mother and the father. In fact, when someone has heard good news, or when someone is in his favorite restaurant, or conversing with their best friend, what happens to the mind of that person? He's struck with a condition. Temporary amnesia. You suddenly, at that moment, you forget the ills of the world. You forget the plight of the Palestinians, or the refugees in Syria, the Rohingyas in Burma. You forget them at that moment, because you're submerged in ecstasy. Psychologists will say this is normal. This didn't happen for Ibrahim a.s. His character didn't permit this. Listen to his response. Listen to his response to the good news. Surah Hud verse 74. So the next ayah. So when fear left Ibrahim, fear meaning that these are angels, relax, yeah? They're not bad guys. When fear left Ibrahim and the happy news came to him, he started pleading before us. He started pleading before us for the people of Lut. He wasn't even fazed. His mind was concerned about those who were destined to be destroyed. This is the immense character of Ibrahim a.s. Look at the Muslims today. The way they look upon the ills, the evil people of this world. They look upon them with such disgust and dismay. And here, Ibrahim a.s., he's pleading with the angels, save them. Don't hurt them yet. Don't destroy them. Perhaps they may still turn back. Perhaps they may heed the advice. And this should be the manner of a Muslim. That we only seek the good in our fellow brothers, in humanity. Okay? We only seek the good for them because we too only seek good for ourselves. Just as we don't know how on the last day of earth, on our last day more like, on earth, we don't know what our destiny is. You could be a Muslim today, you may not be a Muslim tomorrow. Likewise, a kuffar you see down the road, and you look at him with disgust, you don't know that he could be a Muslim tomorrow and you could be kuffar tomorrow. You don't know where you will stand and where he will stand. And so we only seek the good in people, inshaAllah. He was bargaining, he was pleading. He said, this is Ibn Kathir narrates the story, that he said, look, what if there's 50 righteous men located in that city? Will he then retract the punishment? They said yes, but there's not 50 there. There's not 50 people there that are righteous, that's on the deen. What about 40? Yes, we would retract the punishment, but there's not 40 there. And this kept going on. It kept going on till 5. Will you retract the punishment? Would you withhold the punishment if there's 5 righteous men? If 5 righteous men can be found in this city? And they said yes, but there's not even 5. This tells us something quite profound. That there could be a city immersed in shirk, immersed in evil and sin. And the only reason why they're still breathing is because among them there are few righteous men. That they don't know that they owe their lives to these few men that lives among them. That the city is continuing to strive and to survive rather. Because Allah has withdrawn the punishment because a few righteous men live among them. This is the benefit of being in the company of righteous people. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He praises the character of Ibrahim a.s. His tender heart caused them to bargain and plead for these evil people. So Allah says in the next ayah, surely Ibrahim is forbearing, very penitent, ever turning to Allah. In the next ayah, so still Surah Hud verse 76. O Ibrahim, leave it. The angel is saying leave it. In fact, the command of your Lord has come, And there has to come upon them a punishment, not to be turned back. There's no hope. You're still pleading for them. We're saying the punishment is going to go ahead. We can't call this back. It's written down. It's going to happen. And so they leave. These three angels in the disguise as men. And they have to be in the form of men because we can't see them in the angelic form anyways. They have to approach Ibrahim as this form. They leave. They leave and they head south. They leave Palestine and they head south towards Sodom. Now, where is Sodom and why is Lut al-Islam there? If you recall a couple of lectures back, Ibrahim al-Islam, Sarah and Lut were in Syria and was giving dawah. But then a famine struck the land, and that was an indication. This is a recap. I said this already to you guys before. That was an indication for Ibrahim al-Islam to move on, to give dawah somewhere else, and they moved to Egypt. At this moment, at this juncture, Lut al-Islam, living with Ibrahim al-Islam, traveling with Ibrahim al-Islam, has been trained, has gained experience, yeah, and now he's reached the age. Allah has commissioned him as a prophet. Allah made his nephew a prophet, and by the divine command of Allah, He commanded him, you are to remain in Asham, but head towards Sodom. Head towards the city named Sodom. Okay? And this is when they parted ways. So for years, Lut al-Islam has been there, giving dawah. Now Sodom, along with Sodom, there are many other surrounding cities. But Sodom was the central power of these cities, yeah? And I'll name you the cities, inshaAllah. Ibn Kathir makes mention of the names. Sodom, Amura, Adma, Sabubim, Bali, Saugar. So that's 6 in total. Ibn Kathir says that there's 7 towns. The 7th town, the name for it is found in the Bible. Gomorrah. So Allah knows best. Okay? Irrespective, what's important here is that there's more than one town. Allah makes mention of it. Allah always mentions these towns in the plural in the Quran. Now, I mentioned famine struck Syria. But it didn't strike this portion of Syria. It didn't strike this portion of Asham, I should say, not Syria. More accurate term. Okay? In fact, the scholars say that Sodom and the other 6 towns, they were enjoying the lapses of luxury. They were enjoying the fruits of the dunya. Okay? It remained fertile and had everything that the world had to offer at that point in time. But when this happens, when a society is immersed in the joys of this world, it tends to cause them to forget Allah. It tends to lead them into sin. And they committed many sins, among which the Mufassirin list: growing the moustache and shaving the beard, singing, listen to music, wearing silk clothes, throwing stones, in regards to fortune telling, okay, throwing stones. So this is among the list of sins they used to commit. This is what the Mufassirin list. But there are 3 mentioned in the Quran. And these are the 3. We sent Lut when he said to his people, indeed you commit the shameful act that no one in the world has ever preceded you in it. Is it a fact that you go for men and rob the wayfarer and commit evil in your gathering? 3 sins listed here. They were highway robbers. They would steal from the travelers. They lost shame. They had no shame anymore. Sin number 2. They had no shame. They would commit these acts publicly. They wouldn't feel bad about these sins. And the 3rd is a sin that never been committed on the face of the earth before. That's what Allah says. That look at the wording in the Quran. Indeed, you commit the shameful act that no one in the world, not in the world, it's plural here, world, Alameen it says, has ever preceded you in it. In fact, no one else has done this. You started it. Homosexuality. Before I go any further, to mention, why on earth are they committing so many sins? How is it possible that they commit so much? I've listed like over 10 now. Because one of the natures of sin is that they are connected. If one commits a single sin, it is easy, he has more propensity to commit another. And when you go to a location of sin, you will find alongside that sin other sins. For example, if you go to a club, your intention is to listen to music. You listen to music, they're drinking alcohol, you drink alcohol too. The girl's dancing, you dance with her, you commit zina. You had intention to commit one sin, you end up committing 3. Sins go hand in hand. Okay? We can move from one to the next. Now this ayah that I just recited to you, Surah 29 verse 28. This ayah alone is evidence enough for the Muslims that homosexuality is not genetic. Allah is saying it's an invention. They invented it. So it's not something genetic. It's not something you're born with. It's not written on the DNA code. And Allah says, in regards to this sin, when Allah refers to sin, it's like, for example, when Allah refers to zina in the Quran, Allah says shameful. That's what Allah describes it. It's a shameful act. But in regards to this one, when Allah mentions homosexuality in the Quran, Allah says the. Allah adds alif and lam. Yeah, the shameful act. From this, the scholars say, see, homosexuality is worse than zina. It's worse than zina. I know there was an Umayyad Caliph by the name of Abdul Malik. Abdul Malik, and Ibn Kathir narrates these words here in his tafsir. He says that Abdul Malik said that I would have never conceived, I would never thought in my mind that anyone would commit such an act. That it would never came to our mind if I didn't actually read in the Quran that some people used to do this. This is how rare it was at the time. I'm not saying it didn't exist. Homosexuality did exist, but it was so rare. It was so rare. And they would be ashamed of it. They wouldn't like do it publicly. These people would commit the crime publicly. Now, because they invented the sin, they have a share in the crime. And because they invented the sin, right, they have a share in the punishment. Anyone who commits the sin of homosexuality, they have a share of it. A portion of the punishment will fall upon them because they invented it. They started the trend. Okay? And that's why anyone who commits the sin is referred to as a sodomite. Meaning that they're committing the same sin as the people of Sodom. Sodom is the Arabic, Sodom is the biblical name. Okay? So anyone who commits the sin is referred to someone who inhabited that city, even though they didn't. Yeah? Sodomy. So the sin is referred to as sodomy. Today we don't use the word sodomy anymore. Now we use homosexuality. And what's worse, some people say gay. Okay, that's the worst word you could use because gay means happy. Alright? So flawed the English language is. And we spoke about the English language, how deceptive it is. Don't use the word gay. Better use the word sodomy. Sodomy, in fact, doesn't actually mean homosexual. It means, it actually encompasses several crimes. Sodomy, the act of sodomy, yeah? But it's very explicit to make mention of. Sodomy refers to every sexual perversion out there. Okay? Every sexual perversion out there, that is sodomy. Anyways, that's all I want to say was this. That in regards to terminology, it is best to use the word sodomy and not homosexuality. Yeah? And if you use homosexuality, then don't say gay. That's ridiculous. Now, basically, homosexuality is propagated today. And it's on the grounds of, because before they were considered a sin themselves. That's why they throw the word sodomy. Now they don't throw that word out because they're saying, no, it's not a sin, it's not a sin. Sodomy is a very derogatory term to be called that. Yeah, to be called a sodomite, to be called a sodomite. Yeah. So now, on the grounds of that, I feel that way. Exactly upon how I feel. On these grounds, they justify the act. Okay? But never ever are actions justified on your feelings. This is ridiculous. Take for instance a man, a married couple, and the man, he in his heart, deep in the darkness of his heart, he finds his neighbor attractive. Okay? He finds his neighbor's wife attractive. Now imagine one night he's caught sleeping with her. At that moment, would he say to his wife, I felt for her. She wouldn't accept the argument. She would never accept the argument. Because we're better than that. Someone who succumbs to all his feelings, yeah, and inclinations is an animal. The more removed you are from Islam, in fact, the more of an animal you are. And we're far better than this. In fact, Allah specifically created things which are sins, yeah, like alcohol. To consume alcohol is a sin. But Allah specifically created it to be enjoyable. To be something of a temptation. Because life's a test. If Allah didn't create it that way, it wouldn't be a test to say don't drink alcohol. It wouldn't be a test. That's the point. And so we fight our inhibitions. Now someone listening to this lecture, like if it was broadcast publicly, I mean, yeah, not you guys, I hope. They'll start calling me homophobic. And my response to that is quite simple. My response is alhamdulillah. Because when you analyze the word homophobic linguistically, it means someone who is displeased or fears the act of homosexuality. And that's exactly the character of a Muslim. A Muslim should always dislike sin. And so, in other words, every Muslim should be homophobic. But when I say that, I don't mean that your anger or your dislike or your hatred for the sin should manifest into like a violent nature. Okay, it should manifest into like discriminating against them. Yeah, because unfortunately that's what we've done. We've done this. We have discriminated against homosexuals. I know it's not easy to hear this, that, wait, shouldn't we discriminate against them? But the reality is, in the field of dawah, we've discriminated against them. We've disregarded them. When we hear someone's homosexual, we don't address it. We don't approach him and give dawah to the guy. We say, no, he's too far out there. There's no hope for the guy. Now this is dangerous. This is dangerous. What has Allah done in regards to this? What was Allah's response regarding the homosexuals? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of all the cities on the earth, Allah sent Lut to specifically the homosexuals. Allah addressed them first. In other words, no one is exempt from dawah. Everyone is worthy of dawah. And we shouldn't forget that. And we've neglected the homosexual community in regards to this. Okay? It's one of the reasons why they're thriving. Because we haven't addressed it. We don't talk to them. Now can you imagine, can you even conceive the difficult scenario Lut alayhi salam has been placed in? He's been there for years, by the way. He's been there since the story in Syria. Which means you can roughly estimate, according to Ibn Kathir's calculations, you can roughly estimate about 13 years. He's right in the belly of the beast. He's amidst all this homosexuality and all these crimes. He's in the middle of it. Why? Because the hardest job on earth is the job of a prophet. They got the most hardest job. And Lut alayhi salam's position is a great example of that. Such an awkward situation. How was the response to his dawah? He gave dawah to him. He spoke to him about this. Okay? A Muslim, when he gives dawah, he should specifically address the ills of the nation. We do the exact opposite, yeah? We say things that people don't like to hear. People love you for that. If you're a da'i and you say things they want to hear from you, they don't love you. But if you specifically address the weakness of the nation, they'll hate you. And no one does it. If a room for brothers and sisters here, and they weren't wearing hijab, the da'i will be like, you know what, I won't touch the hijab topic, they might run away, they might not like what I'm saying. That's not the right approach. Lut alayhi salam specifically talked about homosexuality to them and said this wrong. How did he respond to the dawah? In the Surah of the Ant, Surah Naml, verse 56, there was no other answer given by his people, except they said, drive out the family of Lut from our city. Verily, these are men who want to be clean and pure. What the hell? Clean and pure. These qualities necessitate praise. And yet they use this as grounds to kick them out. Why? Because when someone is submerged in filth, in regards to sin, when he's submerged in sin, your moral compass goes haywire. It ceases to function. Your senses become numb. And I spoke about this in the story of people of Thamud. That when someone is immersed in sin, your senses go numb. You lose the ability to identify what's good and what's wrong. And so they turn it around. They begin to praise, they begin to admire and desire what's evil and what's wrong, and they begin to dislike what's good. They weren't finished with him. They said, the ayah reads, if you're one of the truthful, if what you say is true, to bring us Allah's punishment. He said, Lut alayhi salam responds, my Lord, help me against the people who make mischief. So they asked for the punishment. They went one step further. They asked for the punishment of Allah. Now, at this juncture, the angels arrive. These three men, they look like men, they arrive. At this moment, the daughter of Lut alayhi salam was tending to the well. She was extracting water from the well. And she saw these handsome young men. Straight away she clocked on. She realized, whoa, they're in trouble. Guaranteed they're going to get raped. Guaranteed now. So she told them, wait here. Do not enter the city until I've returned. And she rushed to her father. This is the iman of this daughter. She rushed to her father. She realized that this needs to be addressed. She rushed to her father and brought him over. And Lut alayhi salam said, be my guest. He's doing the same thing as Ibrahim alayhi salam. Be my guest. The scholars, they say that when a traveller enters your city, it's fard kifaya to provide them a home, to provide them a place to stay. Fard kifaya is a fard that is fard upon the community. Fard upon the community. Someone in the community has to provide them, in this case, to provide them some shelter. They haven't these travellers, they haven't organized like a place for themselves to stay. They haven't got any accommodations. Do you understand? And so the responsibility falls upon the Muslim community to do this. That's fard kifaya, yeah? If no one to provide for the fard, in this case fard kifaya is provide for them for a place to stay, then everyone will be accountable for that. Now, what he does, Lut alayhi salam, he brings them to the town. And he's walking in front of them so that no one sees. He's trying to be very clandestine, trying to be very inconspicuous. Doesn't want anyone to notice these three men. And on the approach, as they're walking towards his home, he says a very harsh and strong statement. He tells them, I swear by Allah, that these people, the people of this town that you've entered in, are the worst people on the face of the earth. And they don't respond. They don't even look fazed by what he just said. So he thought, perhaps they didn't hear me the first time. He repeats himself. I swear by Allah, that is under my impression, these people are the worst people on the face of the earth. Don't say nothing. No response. Yeah. Mufassirin say he said this 4 times. 4 times he had to say this. What is he trying to do? You see, he doesn't want to push them too far. Yeah. That if you're going to stay here, you have to be my guest. But if he comes off like, oh, I don't really want you to be my guest and stuff, then they're going to be the guest of someone else, which means they're finished. Okay, they're going to be someone's victim. Alright? So he's playing in the middle. Now, why weren't they responding? Because this is exactly what they were waiting for. The scholars say that they were given the command, these 3 men were given the command by Allah, that you are not to destroy this town, that the prophet of the town bears witness to their infamy. So they were silently recording every word he was saying. That's why they weren't responding. And then when they reached the house, alhamdulillah, no one noticed. Okay? No one noticed. Only the family of Lut alayhi salam was aware of these 3 strangers, these 3 young, handsome men. But it was from the family, town of Sodom, found out. The wife of Lut alayhi salam left. Now, according to Kutubi, her name is Waliha. Crept out and told the public, I swear to you, Lut, he has 3 men as his guests, and they're the most handsome men I've seen in my life. Instantly, the entire community comes and surrounds and circulates the house of Lut alayhi salam. The question arises, because I'm sure some of you are confused now, why on earth did the wife of Lut do this? Such betrayal. You see, this is something to be expected, to be honest. Because when you live in a society that's immersed in a particular sin, eventually you yourself are going to be desensitized to the sin. How long will you survive? How long will you maintain your abhorrence to the sin, your hate for the sin, if your neighbor is committing the sin? If your colleague is committing the sin? If your family is committing the sin? When you leave your house, they're committing the sin. How long is her hate for the sin going to last? In fact, this is in psychology, this is called socialization. That when you live in a society and you grow up in that society, you're bred in that society, eventually the ills, the habits, the ideologies of that society become your own. And that's what happened to her. It was inescapable. And to preserve your iman in that state is difficult. And that's why it's highly advised that you leave a place like that. Yeah? It will become fard upon that person, scholars will say. It becomes fard upon the person at that point in time, in such a situation. But Lut alayhi salam had a job to do. He was the exception. Okay? Allah knew that he can handle it. Now the Arabic word here, nadi, Allah uses the word nadi here, meaning the entire community, everyone came. The entire population circulated his home. This is how obsessed they were. This is how sexually driven they were. They were so sexually driven, Allah swore by someone. Allah has never sworn by a person before. Allah always swears of His creation, like the sun, the moon, the star, but never by an individual. Allah in this case swore by an individual. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah swore by his life. Surah 15 verse 72. Verily by your life, in the wild intoxication they were wandering blindly. Why did Allah say this? They were so intoxicated that Allah swore by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life. But this is weird because they weren't intoxicated. They weren't intoxicated by what we understand as intoxication. Intoxication means that you're drunk, right? You drank some alcohol, you've lost your senses. But they weren't drunk. But they were intoxicated. They were intoxicated by their lusts. Someone can be so sexually driven, they will behave as if they're drunk. That's how dangerous a sin is. When you're sexually driven to commit zina. You lose your senses. You abandon all sensibilities. You forget the fact that you got children. You forget the fact that you got a wife. You forget these things. And you commit zina. You betray everyone you know. At this juncture, they're about to break through the door. And they're speaking out words. They're saying, among the things they're saying, look, we made it the law that you're not allowed to have guests. They're so sexually driven that it was illegal for Lut alayhi salam to have guests in his home. And these guests were exceptional. Surah Hud verse 78. And his people came to him, rushing upon him. And already they used to commit evil deeds. This is very interesting language here. Already they used to commit evil deeds. Allah is saying that they left to commit the sin, but what the location, the scenario, the event they left was sin. They left sin for sin. They were immersed in sin and leading for another sin. This is how bad, this is how corrupt and misguided these people were. These are my daughters. This is Lut alayhi salam's response. He said, these are my daughters. They are far more clean for you. So fear Allah. And do not disgrace me in respect of my guests. Is there not a single right man among you? This is very strange. These are my he's offering his daughters to homosexuals. Now, Al-Qurtubi, he says that in reality, the law was that believing women folk were permitted to marry disbelievers back at that time. And this law maintained that way all the way to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life. Even during Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during his lifetime, the believing women folk married disbelieving men. During his lifetime. But later on, then the law came down in the Quran that no longer can believing women marry disbelieving men. So it was permissible, first of all. That's the first point. But scholars say in regards to this, that Lut alayhi salam wasn't actually offering his daughters for marriage. What he was doing, in reality, prophets are fathers to the nation. And so every woman is a daughter to him. And so he's saying, marry the women folk. Marry the women folk. And this is supported in the Quran, this concept. Okay? Surah 33 verse 6. The Prophet comes first with the believers against their own selves, and his wives are like their mothers. So in other words, the prophets are like fathers, and the wives of the prophets are like mothers to you as a nation. Yeah? So every woman is like a daughter to the prophets. Okay? What was their response into Lut alayhi salam's rebuttal? They said, you know that we have no claim on your daughters, and you know well what we want. You know well that we want men. That's what they're saying. This also further demonstrates their lack of shame. Then look, the fact that we commit homosexuality is not a secret to you, mate. Everyone knows it. Yeah? So why are we having this conversation? Surah Hud this is the next ayah. Surah Hud verse 77. And when our emissaries came to Lut, he felt uneasy and was strained in his heart on account of them, and said, this is a very hard day. For a prophet to say this is something. We throw this word around all the time. Oh, that's a bad day for me, man. Yeah, like, we'll do twice, man. What can we do? When a prophet says it, then you know we're going through a hard time. They're about to, Ibn Abbas says, they're about to burst open the door. They're about to flood in. The door is the only thing that's dividing them. It's the barrier between him and the people. And it's about to break. At this moment he's saying, this is a difficult. I never reached such difficulty before. Another ayah he says, he said, oh that I had power over you, or might have some strong support for refuge. He's saying, if only I had some kind of power, some support, something, anything. Why are you saying this? Because Lut alayhi salam, he has no sons. Allah only grants him 2 daughters. And this is obviously the hikmah of Allah, being in a homosexual city, yeah? He had 2 daughters. But sons are the strength of the family. In regards to protection, it's the sons. He had nothing. His wife, on top of that, the wife is the main support you have, yeah, in a family, and she was a disbeliever in this case. She was, in fact, aiding and abetting the crime. So he had nothing. Just this flimsy door that's about to break loose. That's all he had. He's about to be finished. It's about to be burst open. At that moment, Allah responded to the dua of Lut alayhi salam. Surah 11 verse 81. They said, O Lut, we are messengers of your Lord. They shall never reach you. Lut, we, the people you're trying to protect, we're not human, mate. We're angels. We're okay. And not only that, they don't want to break through. They won't reach you. This is amazing. Allah's response to the dua, the response was delivered before he made the dua. They made this journey hours, yeah? We don't know how many days it would take, traveling from there and if they're walking at human speed, but irrespective, the journey was made, the delivery of the dua, the response was made before he made the dua. Al-Mujib, Allah is the responder, meaning no one responds to a dua more effectively than Allah. No one. Okay? And at that moment, this barrier, the only thing that's stopping them from entering, Jibreel. By the way, these weren't just ordinary angels. Ibn Abbas says these were the greatest of the angels. Jibreel, Mikael, and Israfil. We've spoke about Jibreel before in the series, and Mikael. We I mentioned Israfil. I mentioned his name, but he hasn't appeared in the storyline. His biblical name is Raphael, if you're wondering. Okay, and he's the one who blows the horn. So these 3 were top notch, they're the highest ranks. And Jibreel said to Lut, open that door. Open it. And see what happens. And so he opened it. And at that moment, Angel Jibreel revealed, he's got many wings by the way, like 600 wings, yeah? He revealed a feather. Among this many wings, a feather he revealed. Of his original angelic form, he revealed only a feather. We can't handle the sight of an angel. He revealed only a feather. That was enough. Everyone who was trying to enter, they became blinded. And the Mufassirin say, they were so blinded by this, that it was as if they never had eyes. It looked as if there was no sign of eyes on their face. It was completely removed from their countenance. And Allah mentions this in the Quran. This is Surah of the Moon, Surah 54, verse 37. And they indeed sought to shame his guests, so we blinded their eyes. Now notice how Ibrahim a.s. and Lut a.s. both didn't realize they were angels. They're sitting right next to them, right in front of his face. Doesn't know they're angels. This demonstrates something to us very important. Because many people, they associate too much to the prophets. They associate too much credit to the prophets. Giving them, telling us and telling others that they know, they have knowledge of the unseen. If they had knowledge of the unseen, why didn't Ibrahim a.s. feed them? Why did he attempt to feed them a calf? Roast? And why did Lut a.s. go to so much trouble to protect these 3 men if he knew they were angels? He did not. They don't know the unseen. Only Allah knows. They only know what Allah reveals to them, just like us. They are humans, just like us. And by the way, remember how I said the punishment is connected to the crime. Allah described, and I recited the ayah earlier, Allah described their attitude towards the dawah as they were blindly behaving. That's how Allah described their attitude. So Allah physically caused them to be blind. The punishment is connected to the crime. This was a sign of prophethood, that they got blinded. But they didn't take the message. They didn't internalize the sign. And so they said he's a magician. He's a sorcerer. This is sorcery he played upon us. So the angels, they begin to give advice to Lut a.s. Surah Hud, verse 81. So move with your family in a part of night, and none of you shall turn to look back. The Arabic word here means not just any night. This is a night where there's no stars in the sky, no even the light of the moon is there, pitch black. At that moment, take the advantage, take the initiative and leave, flee, so that they won't find you. And the scholars of the Quran, they say, when they were fleeing and leaving their home, they were touching the walls. It was so dark. They were touching the way out, using their hands. They couldn't use their eyes to find their way out, basically. Surah 15, verse 73. Then the awful cry overtook them at sunrise. An awful cry, just like the people of Thamud. Not as effective, because it didn't kill them. It didn't kill all of them. But a cry came and it caused damage, in other words. It caused damage. But that wasn't the end of it. After the awful cry, Angel Jibreel, and remember I said he's got 600 wings, and this is according to Sahih Hadith, yeah? With a single wing, with the tip of a single wing, he picked up the towns. Not even town, the towns. Allah uses the plural here, the towns. And the Arabic word here, Allah uses, it means that these towns were joined together. They were joined together. And it doesn't just mean like they were joined physically. They were joined in all manners, in all manner of the understanding of the word, economically, politically, and they were joined in their sins. Okay, so Jibreel picks the entire collection of towns, all 7, into the sky. And the scholars say he took it up so high that the angels flying around in the lowest heaven, they were able to hear even the animals of that city. That's how high he took it up. And then he turned it upside down and smashed to the ground. And where did it land? Surah 15 verse 76. And verily the cities were right on the high road. The very place they used to go and to rob, yeah? Allah smashed them there. The punishment is connected to the crime. But not only that. What was their main crime? They turned around, they twisted, they turned upside down the natural order that Allah set upon man. The man meant to sleep with women. They switched it around upon itself. So Allah turned the entire town upside down. The punishment is connected to the crime. Okay, and that's found in Surah 53, verse 53. And he destroyed the overturned towns. He smashed it. The impact of this smash, of this drop, was so immense that it caused a permanent scar, a permanent dent, a permanent edge on the circumference of the earth. What do I mean by this? You see, with 21st century technology, with modern technology, we know now that the lowest point on earth is that point where they got smashed. It was so low that over time water collected and it became a sea, the Dead Sea. It's called today is the Lake of Lut, but it's also referred to as the Dead Sea. It's not in the sea. It's not in the sea. It's a lake, but it's so low they call it a sea, the Dead Sea. And why do they call it the Dead Sea? Because there's nothing. It doesn't sustain life. For some reason, no good can come from that sea. It's got a high level of sulfur, high level of salt, and the temperature is so high that nothing can survive there. Not even plants. Forget the fish. The plants can't even survive there. Sometimes you find plants in the most weirdest place, like the middle of the desert, or like on a rock in the middle of a mountain. Can't find plants there. It brings no good to the rest of the world. So Allah says in the Quran, we left for them a great sign. And that's in regards to the Dead Sea. Surah Al-Ankabut, which is Surah the Spider, verse 35. And we left from it an evident sign for a people who understand. Only we understand this as a sign. Everyone else is looking at it and like, yeah, cool, man. Yeah, it's a nice place to visit, on a tour, blah blah. They don't understand. They don't see it as a sign. We understand, inshaAllah. And not only that, Allah confirms it. Allah confirms that this place is the lowest place on earth in the Quran, in Surah Rum. In Surah Rum, Allah says that they lost. They recently lost a battle in Adna al-Ard. Adna al-Ard today is translated as the near place. What Allah is talking about, see the Surah Rum, the Surah of the Romans, is referring to a battle that took place during the time of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Romans and the Persians are fighting. And the Romans lost. The Byzantines, they lost. And they lost so badly, they were about the brink of destruction. Okay? But what's important here is where they lost. The battle took place at the exact place where Sodom was. Okay? The Dead Sea. That's where the battle took place. To understand what the verse means, they translated it as some place near to where you guys are. You guys meaning the Meccans who's reading the surah. But if you translate it literally, Adna al-Ard literally means the lowest place on earth. That's what it literally means. So Allah confirms this geographical phenomena in the Quran. It's one of the scientific miracles of the Quran. Subhanallah. Now this wasn't the end of it. First the cry, then the smashing. Allah wasn't finished with them. After that, Surah 54 verse 33, we sent against them a violent tornado with showers of stones. Allah rained upon them stones. And Allah describes the velocity, the speed that the stones were falling as a tornado. Okay? And that's not the end of it. These stones that were falling weren't ordinary stones. They were brimstone. Brimstone are stones that they have heat. They are naturally hot and have exploding nature to it. Listen to the ayah. Surah 15 verse 74. We utterly confounded them. We rained upon them stones of heated clay. Now, these stones that were falling, they weren't just falling like indiscriminately. Each one was targeting somebody. Each one had on it a name written. The name of the person that stone is destined to kill. So each one had a target. Each stone was homing on an individual. No one was safe from this punishment. And the scholars of the Quran, they say that people who didn't happen to be in the town at the time of the punishment, who happened to be in the road somewhere or outside the town, a stone reached them too. And Allah makes mention of this fact that Allah has mentioned the name of the people who are on the stones in the Quran. Surah 51 verse 33. Send down upon them stones of baked clay, marked by your Lord, the transgressors. The transgressors' names are found on the stones. Okay? And not only that, Lut al-Islam, or rather his wife, wasn't spared. His wife as well, fleeing with her family. While she's fleeing, and by the way, there's two opinions regarding this. Some scholars say she remained in the town. Others say she was fleeing, and while she was fleeing, the stone came and killed her too. Okay? We read the ayah, inshaAllah. Surah 66, verse 10. Allah has cited for the disbelievers the example of the wife of Noah and the wife of Lut. Both were married with two of our righteous slaves, but betrayed them, so they could not avail them at all. And it was said, enter the fire along with those who enter. So, what strikes us here, and by the way, I didn't mention the wife of Noah before because I saved it till this moment, okay? Because we don't know anything about her, apart from the fact that she's coupled with the wife of Lut. They share the same fate, that they were both wives of the prophet, of a prophet, and they still disbelieved. This tells us something, because Allah has singled out all the disbelievers on earth. Allah has singled out these two wives. Allah says clearly here, Allah cited for the disbelievers, and the example of this wife and that wife. Why? Because they were wives of prophets and they still weren't saved. In other words, your connections, the people who are a part of your family, even if they're the most righteous of people, you're still accountable for your own actions. Nothing can save you in that day. This also signifies to us the importance of marriage, yeah? Because, I mean, Lut al-Islam lived in such a corrupt society, such a corrupt place and time, that the best he could do was this wife, yeah, who, played a role in the crime. She played a role in the sense that she told them about the guests. So that's the best he could do. It shows us the importance of marriage, because even though he had to end up marrying, it is better to be married and to be safe from zina, married with someone who's not that righteous, than to be not married at all. And Allah knows best. Okay, that's some understanding people take from this. Another point is this, that she didn't commit the crime. Scholars say, and Ibn Abbas mentions this as well, but scholars say anyways, as a whole, that all the wives of the prophets, not a single one ever committed an illicit sexual act. They never committed sodomy, they never committed zina. Okay? This was an honor upon all the prophets, that their wives wouldn't betray them like this. Yeah, in that sense. Okay? So likewise, she didn't commit the act. She didn't commit sodomy. She wasn't homosexual. And yet she was punished as if she was one of them. And we spoke about this in the story of Saleh, the people of Thamud. The people of Thamud, only a few of them killed the camel, and yet the entire population was punished. Because when you permit a crime to occur, when you support a crime, when you advocate or sympathize with the criminals, you'll be charged and punished as if you were the criminal. And the kuffars, they were studying this. They were studying this place. I'm talking about the secular kuffars, the one who don't actually believe in the story of Sodom. They were studying this, and they discovered that the region where Sodom used to lie is in a fault line. Meaning this is a hazardous area. This is where tragedy strikes in regards to geographical tragedy. Yeah? They discovered that at one point in time in history, a volcano erupted, a landslide occurred, and an earthquake happened at the exact same time in the same place. And they can't explain this. Like, how is this possible? This is once in a million. But we know it was because Allah, that's what Allah chose to happen. And this does account for the brimstone. Because when a volcano erupts, brimstone showers out from the sky and it falls down. So that perhaps that accounts for the brimstone. Irrespective, nothing can account for picking it up, the entire city, and slamming to the ground. This was something beyond any earthly explanation. Okay? The way Allah ends the story of people of Lut, the way Allah concludes it, the concluding ayah of this entire story is the most scariest of them all. Okay? The most scariest thing you're going to hear. Allah concludes it. This is Surah Hud. Allah concludes with the words, and the disbelievers are not far from this. The disbelieving people, the Zalimun, Allah says, they're not far from this punishment. This is what's scary. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never ever, as far as we know, has never formed such a combination of punishments on any society before. The cry, picking up and slamming to the ground, the shower of brimstone. Allah never revealed such a harsh punishment before in history. And yet Allah is saying this wasn't exclusive to them. This is not just for them. But Allah is saying this is for anybody and everyone who commits the same crimes as they did. And what's scary about it is that we live in the exact same society today. We are living in a society rampant of these crimes. Not only are they rampant, but it's encouraged, it's bred. It's considered an honor, some places, to be homosexual. And perhaps the only thing preventing from the destruction to befall us right now is that perhaps there's some righteous folk living among us. Perhaps. I'll conclude with this ayah, inshaAllah. Surah Anbiya, verse 75. As for Lut, we gave him wisdom and knowledge, and we delivered him from the town that used to do dirty deeds. Indeed, they were the people of evil, the sinners, and we admitted him to our mercy. Indeed, he was of the righteous. So, with this, I end the story of Lut alayhi salam. That's the extent of the knowledge we have regarding Lut alayhi salam. Yeah? May Allah unite us with our Prophet Lut in Jannah, inshaAllah.